So today we're going to be covering native fish passage through the Soo Locks. So the first thing we're going to cover is the St. Mary's River. It's an outlet between Lake Superior and Lake Huron in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. This river connects the two lakes and provides essential shipping travel, recreational use, and cultural importance to the tribes in the area. And some fish native to the area include perch, walleye, whitefish, northern pike, bass, herring, and sturgeon. Now, connecting the two are the Soo Locks, which is located on the tip of Sault Ste. Marie and was built to allow freighters to access the St. Lawrence Seaway from the mines, connecting the lakes. Now, a sturgeon is a multi-water fish native to the temperate waters of North America and Russia. They're some of the largest fish in America and can hit 8 feet long. They are currently on the threatened and endangered list and can live from 150 to 150 years. They have a very long maturity rate, so they don't even turn mature until they're about 35. Now, traditional sturgeons kind of habitat is in the Keweenaw, and in the Keweenaw Peninsula, just because of prime food and weather conditions, but spawning is often observed in the channel between eastern Nevis Island and Canada, which is about 18 miles south of the Soo Locks. So sturgeon have to travel through that pathway.
The current problem. The issue of sturgeon being killed by the compound gates or compensating gates of the Soo Locks is a new and ongoing problem. This issue was first noticed in the summer of 2023. I unfortunately witnessed this problem firsthand while working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the Soo Locks. The locals believe the more drastic water level changes are the cause for more sturgeon getting stuck on the gates. While water levels are expected to increase and decrease as seasons change and water thaws and freezes, it has been noticed during most seasons that the waterway is consistently lower than the average by several centimeters. Between the months of June to August, nearly 8 sturgeon were noticed dead on the only visible compound gate of the 16. It is more than reasonable to assume that many more were killed in the other 15 gates, especially given several dead sturgeon were reported washed up along the shores by the locals in the community. This issue was only noticed solely for sturgeon. I did not notice any other fish during my time getting caught on the gates. And as you can see in the photo on the right, the top two grayer tan things are 2 decaying sturgeon already, and the bottom left is a sturgeon that at that moment was alive. Unfortunately, we were not able to save that sturgeon, and it suffered the same fate as the other 2. Why this is an issue. Because sturgeon need to pass through this waterway to spawn, if the issue continues further, a decline in the population can be expected. This is detrimental because this is an already endangered species and a sacred fish for the Anishinaabe tribe. The Anishinaabe tribe in the area has noticed this issue as well, and have stated that it has affected their fishing of this sacred fish and their practices. At this current moment, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Soo Locks Commission have no plan of action to combat this issue. The engineers occasionally were able to lower the gates, but this was usually to wash the dead fish off. They were not able to get approval usually in time to save any of the fish. The waters themselves are too dangerous and unpredictable for a boat to access and remove the sturgeon. As you can see in the photo in the middle, that is the rapids on a very mellow day. The compound gates are in charge of controlling the water levels in the area and controlling the water that is used for the Soo Locks for freighters to pass through. So the locks themselves can remain in function. These gates cannot be shut down or moved very easily. These gates play a very important role in the U.S. commerce, and it is difficult to stop operations to lower the gates whenever a fish is stuck. It takes time and approval, and it is not feasible to use this method every time to save the sturgeon.
Our proposal, a native fish passage project. The most ideal solution to the issue would be to remove the Sioux locks altogether. Unfortunately, that's not reality because of how heavily relied upon the locks are for getting ships in up and down the St. Mary's River. Therefore, the best alternative solution is to install infrastructure at the current locks and adjacent rapids that will allow native fish to return to their historic migration routes. By constructing an elevator for sturgeon and a natural fishway for the other native fish, this will help the current situation, which is there is no fish passage system in place, and it should prevent sturgeon from being trapped in the locks by giving them a safe alternative route. Now, sturgeon elevator. What even is this thing? Because sturgeon are a relatively lazy fish that do not like to swim up fast water, that is why so many end up dead in the locks, thinking they are a slow and easy way to get to the other side. In order to effectively allow these prehistoric creatures to make their way up and down the St. Mary's River, installing a sturgeon-specific elevator is a safe and effective way to do so. Our proposal is to implement the structure right next to the current hydroelectric dam, which is in between the rapids to the right and the Sioux locks to the left. In our design, once fish enter the elevator structure, scanners will identify the species of fish. If found to be a sturgeon, they will be allowed to continue into the elevator, where a computer system will close the door behind them and lift the container up and over the dam. Then a door will open, the water will be released, and so will the fish. Now, if it is found to not be a sturgeon, there will be another door that opens, allowing that fish to go back to where it came from. Now, in a report detailing the effectiveness of the sturgeon elevator, Elizabeth Domes Harder explains the only other place a sturgeon elevator has ever been used is in the Menominee River system, where they have found that it to be very successful in getting the sturgeon up and over the dam to their traditional spawning grounds. Domes Harder further explains fisheries biologists have identified 400 individual fish they passed above the Menominee River Dam between 2015 and 2019, which is roughly 100 fish a year, making it a pretty effective system. Harder further explains that they have also identified the same individuals coming back to the elevator year after year, meaning the fish recognize the elevator as their way upstream. So if our design was to be implemented, our hope would be the sturgeon recognize the elevator as their way up instead of attempting to go into the locks, which gets them killed. Now, my design is going to differ from that of the Menominee River in that there will be no holding tank to sort fish species and do experiments on the sturgeon, which in my opinion and our group opinion is rather unnecessary because it just causes unnecessary stress on the fish. Elizabeth Domes Harder explains that the biologist will sometimes check to see if the fish are pregnant, which actually involves taking them out of the water and wrestling the poor thing down to put a ultrasound unit on it to check to see if it's pregnant. This just causes a lot of unnecessary stress. In our design, the fish will never have to leave the water. The recognition cameras and software will do the sorting job, making it a lot more efficient and less stressful process for the sturgeon. The second step to the project is going to be installing a river-like fishway. For other native species, an elevator is not going to be effective. By creating a river-like fishway on the northwest side of the rapids, where that arrow is kind of pointing there, this will allow the fish such as walleye, perch, lake whitefish, herring, etc. to go up and down the St. Mary's as they please. And this will also serve as the way the sturgeon will get back down to the other side, because it's a lot easier to go downriver than up, and also to expect a sturgeon to try and use the elevator to go down river is going to be basically impossible. Now, why are we using a river-like fishway? A river-like fishway is a lot more natural of a system because conventional fishways are not usually designed for non-acrobatic fish like walleye, perch, lake whitefish, herring, making it so migrating steelhead and salmon are really the only ones that can jump up. And because steelhead and salmon are not native to the Great Lakes, we're not really looking to get those up and down the system, even though they will end up going up and down the rapids just because they are there already and the fish passage will be there. So they'll be going up and down, which, because they're established in both Lake Superior and Lake Huron, will not affect anything. A river-like fishway will be designed to mimic a natural river where native non-acrobatic fish would live or migrate through, making it more accessible and easier for them to get up and down the locks. According to science and environmental journalist Rebecca Kessler, After a nature-like fishway was installed around a dam in New England to help migrating shad populations, it was shown that 94% of these fish were able to make it around the dam and into their traditional spawning waters. Now, if a shad was able to get through this, perch, walleye, lake whitefish, herring will be able to do this no problem, because a shad is a very small, non-acrobatic fish that cannot really jump over much. So the comparison between the river-like fishway on the left and the traditional fishway, as you can see, the river-like fishway is just a lot more pleasing to look at compared to the ugly concrete structure. And also you can see that on the right-hand side with the traditional fishway, it requires the fish to jump up sets of rapids, and it just doesn't look like something a fish is going to want to swim into, making it not a very effective for the majority of fish, because they probably just won't go into it. Versus the one on the left, being the natural river fishway, just looks like a river a fish would typically migrate up through or live in, making it a more traditional, natural thing. That is all for our proposal. Thank you very much.
So the next question is, how does it follow the 7 grandfather teachings? Well, first, what are the 7 grandfather teachings? Basically, they are a moral code that is passed down among tribe members and their families. And they are 7 principles that must all be used together. And they show someone and teach someone how to live a good life. So I'm going to just go through the 7 aspects of them. So the first one is love, which is represented by the eagle. And I just have a couple quotes. Well, the first one says, "Love is an attachment based upon devotion, admiration, tenderness, and kindness for all things around you." And the second one, "When people are weak, that is when they need love the most." The second is respect, which is represented by the bison. And a couple quotes representing respect are, "There should be no part of creation that should be excluded from the honor that we are to give." And the second, "We demonstrate respect by realizing the value of all people and things and showing courteous consideration." And the third aspect of the 7 grandfather teachings is courage or bravery. And a statement describing this is, "We face life with the courage to use our personal strengths to face difficulties, stand tall through adversity, and make positive choices." And courage is represented by the bear. The fourth aspect of the 7 grandfather teachings is honesty, which is represented by the raven. And a statement about that is, "Facing a situation is to be brave, but having the courage to not only do the right thing, but also saying it is honesty." Number 5 is wisdom, which is represented by the beaver. It is the mixture of these teachings combined with the experiences of life is what we refer to as wisdom. The sixth aspect of the 7 grandfather teachings is humility, which is represented by the wolf. And a statement that describes humility is, "We must always consider ourselves equal to one another. We must be aware of the balance and equality with all of life, including humans, plants, and animals." And the final aspect of the 7 grandfather teachings is truth, which is represented by the turtle. And a statement that represents this is, "We know who we are in our heart. By knowing that, we also know the truth. Our emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual gifts will guide each one of us in our journey." And all of those statements came from the Nottawasepi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. So, how does our fish passageway follow the 7 grandfather teachings? So, through the creation of a fishway around the locks, many aspects of the 7 grandfather teachings are being put into consideration and followed. 3 that I would like to point out are respect, wisdom, and humility. For respect, while the building of the locks surrounded the idea of making ship travel easier, the native fish of the area were an afterthought. With our proposal, the fish would be given back their ways of travel without risking their lives. Therefore, the fish would be just as important and respected as the people of the area. Wisdom is used as we combine the idea of the fish passageway with the experiences of fish being killed in the Sulaks. And much like the quality of respect, we are putting the native fish on the same level as us, as humans, through humility. Okay, so that is all for our presentation of our proposal of our native fish passageway. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us, and we will hopefully give you the answers that you need.